Joining us right now is RealClearPolitics Associate Editor and columnist A.B. Stoddard. A.B., this is pretty extraordinary. Another example of mainstream media bias. How do you see it?
Well, I do think it's not. They made a mistake and they didn't use his full remarks in the context which he provided when he said we're not going to rule out anyone on the basis of their religion. So he actually sort of did rule out a registry. And I think this issue, though, is one that the press has been excited to jump on because there's been so much inconsistency. The Muslim ban was up on the Trump website and then taken down and then put back up. And so there's a lot of interest in whether or not this is something that's going to go forward as the administration to be starts picking key personnel and looking at people specifically with regards to immigration policy. So it's a hot topic. But I do think in this case, it's clear that Reince Priebus backed down from that. And I did see this yesterday, and I think that NBC was chastened.
Dagan, I don't know. It's hard to trust the media when things like this keep happening.
And this is just the beginning of what the Trump administration's in store for. So it goes both ways because the media is going to distort. The media is going to manipulate what people within his administration say. On the other hand, to A.B.'s point, that the administration is going to need to be crystal clear about where it stands on a lot of these issues. And as the team forms and comes together, and as we get more appointments, you got to have that happen.
Yeah.
I oversee some social media at Barron's and Dow Jones, and so I will say if somebody did what NBC did, who worked for me, they would be hearing from me. You cannot do that. On the other hand, I will say, when someone asks you, are you going to create a registry of blank, religion, race, whatever, your first phrase is not, I don't rule out anything. We have too much of a history in this country, in this world,
yeah, but then he said it right after.
You're absolutely right, Maria, and I agree.
He said, but we're not going to do a registry based on religion.
Listen, NBC was unacceptable, absolutely wrong, unequivocally. I will not make excuses for them. That said, I still criticize him for saying I won't rule out anything.
I agree, Jack. I think in a social media culture, if you still work with the phrase, I don't rule out anything, it's going to kill you. It's because they will always just get that very sentence. It's the 140 thing.
But people are so skeptical. I mean, whether it's the media or even just the politicizing of what has gone on in this government. You look at the, targeting of conservatives by the IRS. You look at the State Department trying to kill the investigation of the Clinton Foundation by the FBI. We got into this yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures when I spoke with former Attorney General John Ashcroft and former Attorney General Michael Mukasey about the lack of enforcement of the law under President Obama.
One of the tragedies of the last several years has been the devaluation and the debasement of the rule of law. And the president has really set the tone here. When he disagreed with his own policy on Obamacare, he didn't go back to the Congress to get the law changed. He just, by executive fiat, ordered a change in the way the law was to be administered and handled. When he disagreed with the immigration policy, he decided that he would change the law by telling people not to enforce it.
There's been a policy by the current administration to relax enforcement of immigration laws, and that played a large part, in the campaign that resulted in the election of President-elect Trump.
A.B., we know that there are laws in place in terms of immigration and deportation that this last administration just blew off. They didn't enforce them.
Yeah, well, the Obama administration, much to the consternation of immigration advocates, actually did deport many people, but did it quietly. And you're right, they relaxed other laws. And, of course, President Obama tried to go around the Congress with executive orders on this. I think, and I fully expect Senator Sessions to run a different Justice Department. I think those rules will be enforced, and we'll have a different immigration policy. But the precedent has been set, and it is true. Attorney General Ashcroft's description of what President Obama did, particularly with health care, was a real end run around the Congress. And what we'll be watching, since Republicans seem to be sort of powerless to stop President Obama, is whether gridlock builds up in the Congress and President Trump tries to do this as well in some form. reform. The precedent has been set, a marker's been laid down, and future presidents now can feel frustration over, an impasse and do a lot on their own from the White House, and that really needs to be watched, and it needs to be stopped, and we need to look, obviously, as soon as we get a ninth justice, at checks and balances again and 3 co-equal branches of government.
I have a question about what the future Congress is going to look like in relationship to the president. Do we have 2 parties now, Democrats and Republicans, or 3? Do we have Democrats, mainstream Republicans, and Trump?
I really think this is going to be the most fascinating question going forward. Look, Donald Trump has relationships with Democrats. He has been a Democrat. His children are Democrats. He has supported Democratic policies in the past. He's donated to these people. He knows them. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, these are his people. I would not be surprised if he really ruffles feathers on the Republican side, trying to get through policies that they don't champion, like the elimination of carried interest or costly infrastructure or other things. Sherrod Brown, Senator from Ohio, has already reached out to the administration-elect to try to work with people on their shared, like-minded trade agenda. So this is going to be a really interesting, the divisions are going to be interesting to watch, because I think in the end there will be a lot of strange bedfellows and a lot of prospect for a lot of legislation to be passed. It won't all be Republican legislation, though.
Spend money like a liberal and cut taxes like a conservative, and that's why we've got bond yields at the highest levels of the year, because, again, that's financial ruin, potentially.
Yeah, we'll see. It's, some might say he's in the middle because he's got both policies. I don't know.
Maybe. He's wooing Chuck Schumer.
Well, to Dagan's point, I mean, that's sort of, it's like you're suggesting he might take the bad impulses of both.
Right. Well, I don't think cutting taxes is a bad impulse, but I think
only if you cut spending as well.
Right, $1 trillion infrastructure spending is still a little left, if you will.
That's definitely one out there.
KT just made a face.
A.B., thank you.
Thank you.
A.B. Stoddard there.